10 years ago, a Boeing 777 loaded with 239 people vanished in the middle of the night without leaving so much as a distress call. That plane was Malaysian Airlines Flight 370. And despite the largest search in aviation history, no one can prove where it went, how it went, or why it went. Pieces washed up, timelines were reconstructed, theories were issued like press releases, pilot suicide, rogue hijacking, autopilot into the ocean. But the questions never stopped. Why did it make a clean westward U-turn the moment it crossed into Vietnamese airspace? Why was its transponder shut off with surgical precision, yet the plane kept flying for 7 hours? Why do witnesses in the Maldives claim they saw a low-flying airliner roaring overhead, heading straight toward a U.S. military base the official story refuses to mention? And most important, why did this plane seem to leave no trace in an age where your phone knows where you parked? The establishment narrative is clear. It crashed in the ocean. We just haven't found it yet. But what if that's not what happened? What if the plane didn't just disappear? What if it was removed? That's not just science fiction anymore. It's a real question, especially if you've been paying attention to the only person in Hollywood talking about these systems like they're real, Terrence Howard. Now, before your eyes roll off your face, let me stop you right here. I had to look up every single term Terrence Howard mentioned. I didn't understand what he meant by frequency wrapping, molecular excitation, or resonance as a form of propulsion. I had to dig through patents, interviews, geometry diagrams, and more than one clip of him being mocked on television. But after reading all of it, I don't think he's crazy. I think he's early. Let's start with the idea that everything is made of waves. Howard believes matter isn't solid. It's vibration. Your body, the chair you're sitting in, a Boeing 777, all of it is energy oscillating at different frequencies. Sound is just light slowed down. Matter is light frozen in place. Change the vibration, change the form. Now imagine you could take a physical object, say a plane, and change its frequency. Howard says that if you could vibrate an object's molecules at just the right speed, you could decouple it from the environment. Gravity, inertia, mass, all of it is tied to how that object is resonating with the rest of reality. Break that resonance and that object becomes invisible to the system, not destroyed, not exploded, removed. Sound crazy? Sure. But here's where it gets eerie. MH370's transponder cut out right after saying goodnight to air traffic control. No distress call, no mayday, no debris. Then for hours it kept pinging satellites, invisible to radar, flying blind. These satellite handshakes weren't designed to track planes, but somehow a British engineer used Doppler shifts in radio frequencies to reconstruct its path. The plane was only visible through the ripples it left in the electromagnetic field, exactly the kind of frequency residue Howard talks about. Think about that. The plane wasn't seen. It was inferred from distortions in wave patterns. Tell me that doesn't sound like a plane phasing out. Terrence Howard uses that phrase all the time. Removed from the system. In his model, everything runs on a resonance-based structure. Geometry isn't flat, straight lines are an illusion. And what we call gravity? He says it's fake. What holds us here isn't weight, it's alignment. When an object is in phase with Earth, it's stuck. But shift that alignment, shift the resonance, and you're gone. You can exit the system without crashing. And now go look at what happened to MH370. That aircraft didn't just disappear. It executed a professional turn. It followed known waypoints. It logged back into satellite communication after going dark, as if someone had manually rebooted its systems. Then it flew out over open ocean and never came back. No explosion, no oil slick, just a perfect vanishing act confirmed only by wave data and timing offsets. Now listen to what Howard has said in multiple interviews. When you understand how to excite the molecules of an object properly, you can lift it out of the field. It's not flying. It's not levitating. It's no longer in the same system of forces. Do you get it yet? They told us the plane was lost, but what if it was tuned? What if someone was or something knew how to wrap that plane in a field that pulled it out of sync with its environment? Howard has said that you don't need anti-gravity, you don't need engines, you need to resonate the object into a different vibrational plane. Well, what if that's what had happened? Let's talk. Cargo. On board MH370 were 20 engineers from Freescale Semiconductor, a U.S. defense contractor developing radar invisible microchips, the kind of tech used in drones, stealth satellites, and electronic warfare. Less than a week after the plane disappeared, a patent was finalized, one that somehow shifted ownership from the engineers to their corporate affiliate. That company, allegedly tied to powerful investment firms. You think that's a coincidence? You think 20 microchip engineers vanish with a plane flying away from radar, away from ATC, away from its planned route, and days later, intellectual property is handed off? Terrence Howard might call that removal via resonance. Others might call it CIA asset cleanup. Ask yourself why so many witnesses in the Maldives say they saw a low-flying plane with Malaysia Airlines markings around 6:15 a.m., hours after it vanished from radar. They say it flew south low and loud. They saw the tail, they saw the stripes, and where was it headed? A straight line toward Diego Garcia, a classified U.S. military base known for electronic warfare testing, long-range drones, and black site operations. Of course, the White House ruled that out without explaining anything. But what would Terrence Howard say? He'd say a plane that's been taken out of the system doesn't just drop into the ocean, it goes somewhere. He's described how frequency fields can shield or cloak objects, and he's explained how you can land a craft without using normal lift or propulsion if you're using resonant motion instead. Was MH370 flown into Diego Garcia wrapped in a frequency field? Were its passengers taken, its cargo recovered, and its disappearance papered over with a few planted debris pieces, washing up years later? You don't have to believe it, but you better explain why we still have no bodies, no black box, no confirmed crash site, just scraps. Just enough to close the case, not enough to prove it. You don't have to believe Terrence Howard's geometry. You don't have to accept his rejection of 1 times 1 equals 1. But you do have to explain how a plane the size of a skyscraper disappeared for 7 hours, changed direction, dodged radar, pinged satellites, and left behind only wave signatures and a handful of drifting fragments. You do have to ask yourself, what if frequency manipulation isn't just a fringe theory? What if it's how reality works when the right people have the right tools? I've said it before, Elon Musk didn't build reusable rockets to send tourists into space. He built them because asteroid mining is real and off-world energy extraction is the future. And guess what? You don't mine rocks using gas, you mine them using frequency-based extraction. Terrence Howard isn't a scientist, but he might be a decoder. And MH370? It wasn't lost. It was tuned out. Leave a comment if you're ready to say what nobody in government will. Something happened that night. Something we aren't allowed to understand. Let's go deeper. Because the rabbit hole didn't stop with Doppler shifts and missing patents. These next details were left out of the official timeline, and they line up perfectly with Terrence Howard's view of a wave-based manipulable universe. The plane was carrying a bulk shipment of lithium-ion batteries, unstable under the right conditions. Now combine that with Howard's concept of molecular excitation. What happens if a targeted resonance frequency agitates those batteries mid-flight? You don't need a bomb. You need a frequency match. Was the cargo the delivery mechanism or the target? Infrared satellite data captured over the Indian Ocean allegedly showed no cabin heat signature in the hours after radar contact was lost. In Howard's framework, that's what a frequency field would do. suspend biological systems, or phase them into a state of non-interaction. No heat doesn't mean no plane, it means something was altered. The US military has experimented with electromagnetic displacement since the 40s. See Project Montauk and the infamous Philadelphia experiment. Howard's belief in manipulating reality through resonance echoes that perfectly. Did MH370 encounter a man-made frequency field that produced a micro-vortex in spacetime, a controlled slip in dimension? Certain regions of the Indian Ocean and South China Sea show natural geomagnetic irregularities. If Howard is right on an energy shapes matter, what happens when a plane crosses a volatile magnetic node at jet speed? Could MH370 have hit a field disturbance and experienced a literal vibrational misalignment with its environment? After vanishing from radar, MH370's satellite system logged back online at 2:25 a.m. The likeliest explanation, a full power cycle, possibly from a forced reboot of onboard systems. Who has the tech to do that remotely? And why does that moment match Howard's theory of re-exciting molecular systems to shift their state? Not a single phone on board ever pinged a tower again, even while flying over populated areas. Not one. According to Howard's logic, a frequency-wrapped object can't transmit normal signals. This wasn't silence, it was suppression. Every device was locked inside an isolation field. Despite tracking most of the globe, US satellites never released their full imaging data from the region. Why? What did they see? Howard would say the signatures may not look like a plane, they may have shown disruption fields or heat anomalies in a form that standard sensors ignore. Chinese analysts claimed they detected a signal from the aircraft 2 days after the disappearance, far from the expected crash zone. It was dismissed. But if you follow Howard's logic, frequency states don't obey geography. The plane might not have moved physically, just reappeared on a different wavelength. Howard has described vortex geometry, spiraling patterns that exist in all matter and movement. If MH370 entered an electromagnetic vortex, whether natural or weaponized, then it didn't crash. It was spiraled out. Not into smoke, but into non-detection. Debris floated. Wreckage was confirmed. But no bodies were ever found. No DNA, no bones. Howard talks about frequency affecting material stability. If you resonate a biological system hard enough, it doesn't explode. It decoheres. The plane's metal survived. The passengers may have simply been unmade. That's not conspiracy, that's physics, just not the version you're allowed to hear on CNN.